The storm over Titan raged like a wild beast, lightning flashing through thick orange clouds that glowed with strange light. Inside the command deck of the Artemis 9, Captain Mara Vance stood in silence, her eyes fixed on the radar. Something was out there moving fast through the storm, silent but heavy. For 2 hours, the colony on Titan had been completely dark. No distress call, no warning, just a repeating transmission filled with static and fear. The message was short, spoken in a trembling human voice that kept echoing through the comms. It hunts in the dark. Do not breathe. Do not run! Every time it played, it sent a chill down Mara's spine. She had seen battles before, fought alien pirates and rogue machines, but nothing about this felt normal. The silence of a dead colony meant something worse than death had arrived. The Artemis 9 was Earth's fastest recon ship, small but deadly. It was built for rescue and quick strike missions across deep space. Now its purpose was to find survivors, if any remained. The crew was small, only 5 people left from the last mission. Mara, her engineer Kellen, medic Rhea, and 2 security marines, Briggs and Solace. Each of them looked uneasy as the ship descended through Titan's thick atmosphere. Outside, lightning cracked across the frozen plains, lighting up the endless wasteland of rock and ice. The colony soon appeared below them, its metal structures twisted and burned. Some buildings were half buried in frost, others ripped open as if torn by massive claws. No bodies were seen, only emptiness, as if every living thing had vanished. When the ship landed, the air outside looked still, yet something about it felt wrong. The radar picked up faint movement, but it came from everywhere at once, like the whole planet was breathing. Mara ordered the team to suit up. The ground was covered in dark dust that stuck to their boots as they stepped out. The colony's main gate stood open, swinging slowly in the icy wind. Inside, walls were scorched, metal melted in strange circular shapes. Kellen bent down beside a burn mark, scanning it with his device. The temperature here reached over 4,000 degrees, he said softly. Nothing human could have caused that. The silence pressed on their ears, broken only by the soft hum of their suits. Rhea moved ahead, her helmet light cutting through the shadows until she froze. "Captain," she whispered, "I think I saw something move." Mara lifted her rifle, eyes scanning the darkness, but nothing was there. They continued deeper, passing a corridor filled with smashed equipment and shattered glass. The power flickered weakly, lights blinking on and off like dying stars. Then, out of nowhere, the motion sensor in Mara's visor flashed red. Movement, fast and close. "Hold your positions," she ordered, her heart pounding. The sound of metal scraping echoed through the hall, slow and deliberate, like claws dragging across steel. Before anyone could react, Briggs's camera feed started to glitch. The screen filled with static, then cleared just long enough for them to see a blur dart across the corridor. Something tall, black, and impossibly fast. The next second, Briggs screamed. His feed went black. Rhea gasped, clutching her weapon. "What was that?" she cried. But no one answered. Only the faint echo of Briggs's scream remained, fading into silence. Mara's breathing grew shallow inside her helmet. She looked at her crew, fear flashing in their eyes. "Everyone fall back," she said. "Back to the ship, now." They ran through the ruined corridor, boots hitting metal floors, the sound of movement following them from behind. Something was chasing them, unseen but close enough to feel. When they reached the airlock, Mara slammed the control panel. The door sealed shut just as a heavy thud struck the outer hull. The sound reverberated through the ship like a heartbeat. Inside the Artemis 9, the crew stood shaking, staring at one another. Rhea whispered, "It's out there." Kellen's voice trembled. "No," he said quietly. "It's hunting us." And as the storm roared outside, the ship's clock began to count down. The first hour of 24 had begun, and survival was no longer a mission. It was a fight against something not human. The silence inside the Artemis 9 was thick and heavy, broken only by the low hum of the engines and the nervous breaths of the crew. Mara stood near the main control panel, staring at the flickering motion sensors that kept lighting up across the screen. The dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again, moving in strange patterns all around the ship. Whatever was outside wasn't wandering, it was circling them, studying them. Then, without warning, a sharp thud echoed through the hull. The sound made everyone freeze. "It's testing us," Kellen muttered, gripping his plasma rifle tighter. "It knows we're in here." Mara tried to keep her voice calm, though her pulse raced. "We need to find out what it is," she said. "Briggs's camera feed. Run it back frame by frame." Kellen obeyed, his fingers flying across the console until the image froze on a single blurred shape. He slowed it down. The figure became clearer, and the crew leaned closer. What they saw made their stomachs twist. It was tall, at least 8 feet, with long limbs and a smooth black surface that gleamed under the faint light. It looked alive, but there were no visible eyes, just a faint blue glow beneath its skin like light trapped inside glass. Its claws were long and sharp, its movements smooth and almost human, but not quite. Before they could process it, a shriek of static cut through the comms. The external cameras showed a dark shape moving across the hull, fast and deliberate. "It's on the ship!" Rhea shouted. Mara turned toward Solus and pointed. "Get to the lower bay, keep it off the power core." Solus nodded, disappearing down the corridor with his rifle raised. The rest of them watched the monitors, tension gripping every muscle. Then the sound came again, scratching metal, footsteps on the roof. A second later the lights flickered and the ship groaned. The alien was forcing its way in. Solus's voice came through the comms, rough with fear. "It's down here! It's inside!" The crew ran to the lower deck, weapons ready, hearts pounding. When they reached the cargo bay, the air was filled with steam from the damaged pipes, and the lights kept blinking in and out. Then through the mist the creature stepped forward. It moved like a shadow, each step heavy but silent, its claws dripping with something dark. When the flickering light hit it fully, everyone saw it clearly for the first time. Its skin was black like obsidian, covered in faint blue veins that pulsed like living circuits. Where a face should have been, there was only smooth armor, no mouth, no eyes, only that cold glow. It stopped, tilting its head as if observing them. Kellen raised his rifle and fired. Plasma bolts shot across the room, hitting the creature square in the chest. But the light just spread across its skin like ripples on water. The alien barely flinched before moving so fast that no one saw it clearly. It slammed into Solus, tossing him across the room like a rag doll. Rhea screamed as Solus hit the wall with a sickening thud, his helmet cracking. The creature turned again, its glowing veins pulsing brighter. Mara fired her weapon, aiming for its head, but the alien dodged with inhuman speed, almost as if it knew where the shots would go. It was playing with them. "Fall back," Mara shouted. They retreated up the ladder to the upper deck, sealing the hatch behind them. The creature didn't follow right away. Instead, they heard it walking below, claws clicking on the floor, the sound slow and steady, almost thoughtful. "It's not killing us fast," Kellen said in a shaking voice. "It's studying us," Mara's mind raced. The message they had received before landing, the warning, made sudden sense. "It hunts in the dark. Do not breathe. Do not run." Whoever had sent it had known exactly what this thing was. The ship trembled again, and the lights dimmed as if the creature had reached the main generator. Rhea looked at the captain with wide eyes. "What do we do?" "It can't be killed." Mara gritted her teeth, thinking fast. "Then we outsmart it," she said. "We find what it wants and we make sure it doesn't get it." Kellen looked at her, his voice quiet but certain. "It already got what it wanted," he said. "It's hunting us." Mara felt a cold shiver run down her spine. She looked at the timer on the console. Only 23 hours left until the rescue ship's arrival. The first had already been lost. Now it wasn't just about survival. It was a test, a deadly game. Something not human was out there, and it was watching every move they made, waiting for the perfect time to strike again. The hours passed slowly inside the Artemis 9, each minute heavy with dread. The alien had disappeared into the storm outside, but everyone knew it hadn't gone far. It was out there waiting, learning. The crew moved carefully through the damaged colony base, trying to gather supplies and repair the communications tower. The corridors were dim and filled with shadows that seemed to move when no one was looking. Every sound, the hiss of air, the creak of metal, felt like a warning. Kellen kept scanning for life signs, but the device showed nothing. "It's like it doesn't exist," he said quietly. "No heartbeat, no heat, no radiation." Rhea tried to stay calm, though her hands shook as she packed medical gear. "How can something alive not exist?" she asked. Kellen didn't answer because he didn't know. Mara, walking ahead with her rifle ready, stopped near a collapsed wall. The metal beams looked like they had been melted, not broken. She touched one carefully. It was smooth and glassy, as if burned by lightning. "Whatever that thing is," she said, "it's more than a predator. It's a weapon." As they explored deeper into the colony, they found traces of what had happened before their arrival. Broken helmets, half-buried equipment, and claw marks that ran along the walls. The scientists here had tried to defend themselves, but failed. Kellen connected his tablet to the base's main console, trying to recover any data that remained. Static filled the room for a moment before the screens flickered to life. Dozens of old recordings appeared, marked with red warning symbols. He played one. The image showed a terrified scientist, his face pale and sweaty, whispering into the camera. "We thought it was a fossil," he said, his voice shaking. "It was buried under the ice, perfectly preserved. We brought it out. We woke it up. It's hunting us now. It adapts, it learns. If anyone finds this, run." The recording ended with a sudden roar in the background before the feed cut to black. The crew stared in silence. Ria's voice cracked when she spoke. "They found it frozen. And it woke up." Mara's jaw tightened. "Then it's ancient," she said. "Maybe older than Earth itself." Outside, the storm began to ease, revealing a faint blue glow on the horizon. The creature's trail led to an underground tunnel, an entrance to the old mining levels of the colony. Against their fear, the crew decided to follow it. They needed to understand what they were fighting. The tunnels were wide, lined with old machinery and frost-covered pipes. The deeper they went, the colder it became, and the air began to taste of metal. Then from somewhere ahead came the sound of slow, rhythmic breathing. Mara raised her hand, signaling the others to stop. The glow of their helmets reflected off the tunnel walls, but in the corner of her visor, Mara saw movement, just a flicker, like a shadow crawling along the ceiling. She turned, and there it was. The alien dropped from above, landing silently behind them. Kellen spun and fired, blue light filling the tunnel. The creature vanished into the darkness, moving faster than the human eye could follow. A moment later, it struck back, slashing at the wall near Ria and tearing through her shoulder guard. She screamed as Mara pulled her back, firing again. The alien's body shimmered, its color blending perfectly with the metal around it. It could camouflage itself, almost invisible. "It's learning our patterns," Kellen shouted. "Every time we fight, it gets faster." They ran, the creature following, its claws scraping along the walls like nails on glass. When they reached the surface, the storm howled again, and lightning lit up the frozen plains. For a brief second, they saw it clearly, tall and shining, standing still in the storm, watching them. They sealed themselves inside the ship again, gasping for breath. Ria's wound was deep but clean, cauterized by the alien's strange energy. "It could have killed me," she whispered. "Why didn't it?" Mara looked through the viewport at the storm outside. "Because it's not just hunting," she said. "It's testing us." The realization settled over them like ice. The creature wasn't some wild beast. It was intelligent, maybe more than them. It knew their weapons, their tactics, their fear. It was studying them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. And in that moment, they all understood. They weren't in control anymore. They were part of the hunt. The storm outside had finally started to fade, leaving behind a cold silence that felt almost heavier than the noise. Inside the Artemis 9, the crew was exhausted, shaken, and desperate for answers. They couldn't keep running from something they didn't understand. Mara sat at the control desk, staring at the data Kellen had recovered from the colony's servers. Most files were damaged, but one map caught her eye. A route leading deep under the surface, far below the old mining tunnels. "Whatever they found," she said, "it's down there." Ria frowned, still pale from her wound. "You think that thing came from under the ice?" Mara nodded slowly. "No, I think it's guarding something." With no other choice, they decided to go below. They equipped thermal suits, light sources, and rifles before leaving the ship again. The entrance to the lower tunnels was half buried under ice, but the team forced it open. Cold air spilled out, colder than anything they had felt before. The deeper they went, the more the walls changed, from rough metal to smooth black stone covered in strange carvings. It was clear now. This wasn't a man-made place. The path led to a huge cavern glowing faintly with blue light that pulsed from beneath the ice. In the center stood a structure, massive and ancient, half buried but unmistakably artificial. It looked like a ship, though not like any human design. Its hull curved like bone, and strange symbols glowed along its surface. The crew stood in awe. "We're not the first to come here," Kellen whispered. He brushed away a layer of frost from a nearby console and found something shocking beneath. The markings weren't alien at all, they were letters. Human letters. "This can't be right," he said. "It's written in Greek." Ria bent closer, reading the faint words carved into metal. "Project Prometheus," she said softly. "Human DNA integration successful." For a moment, no one spoke. Then it hit them all at once. This was not an alien ship. It was human. Or at least something made by humans long ago. Mara stepped back, her voice shaking. "Are you telling me we made that thing?" Kellen nodded slowly, piecing the clues together. "It wasn't just found here, it was built here. The colony must have discovered it frozen under the ice. They thought it was alien, but it's ours. Maybe a forgotten experiment, maybe a weapon from before Earth unified. Ria's voice cracked with disbelief. So that thing that's been hunting us, it's part of us? Kellen turned to her. More than that. It was designed to be the perfect hunter. Human intelligence mixed with alien biology. A machine of survival. The truth hit them like a cold wave. Humanity had created it. The monster outside wasn't a visitor. It was one of their own creations, left behind in the dark and forgotten. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A low roar echoed through the cavern, shaking the ice. The blue light from the ancient ship grew brighter, almost blinding. The creature appeared at the edge of the cavern, its glowing veins pulsing like fire. It stood tall, watching them, and then its voice came, not through sound but through the radios in their helmets. Creator. The single word was deep, metallic, and filled with fury. The crew froze, realizing the truth. The creature knew them. It remembered what humanity had done. It wasn't hunting them just for sport. It was following its original programming, to destroy any human who came near the Prometheus ship, to protect the secret that humans had once made monsters like it. Mara raised her weapon, her hands trembling. "We have to leave," she said. But the alien was already moving closer, its steps shaking the ground. It wasn't attacking yet, it was waiting, studying like it had before. Kellen stared at it, horrified and amazed. "It knows we made it," he whispered. "And it hates us for it." The creature's blue light brightened, lighting up the entire cavern, and its voice came again, louder this time. "You forgot." The walls began to crack as energy surged through the floor. The Prometheus ship started to awaken, its old systems flickering to life after centuries of silence. The crew ran, their footsteps echoing through the tunnel as the cavern collapsed behind them. Ice rained down, and the ship roared like something alive. When they finally reached the surface, the storm had returned, furious and red. Mara looked back at the glowing crater behind them, and knew there was no denying it anymore. Humanity had created something beyond their control, and now it was awake again. What they had thought was an alien threat was really a reflection of themselves, a reminder that humans had once played God, and the creation had come back to claim its makers. The cold wind howled across Titan's empty plains as the Artemis 9 shook under the storm's force. Inside, Captain Mara Vance stood at the command table, her face pale but determined. The truth still echoed in her mind. This creature wasn't alien. It was human-made, a weapon from a forgotten age, left to sleep beneath the ice until the colony's scientists woke it. Now it was awake and it wanted revenge. Outside, the blue light from the cavern glowed through the storm, pulsing like a heartbeat. The Prometheus ship was alive again, feeding power to the creature. They didn't have much time. The rescue shuttle from Earth would pass above Titan in 1 hour, but the creature would never let them live long enough to reach it. "We end this," Mara said, her voice steady. "We can't let that thing leave this planet." Kellen understood immediately. "The fusion core," he said. "If we overload it, we can take both the Prometheus ship and the creature down." It was a suicide plan, but there were no other choices. They began preparing the trap. Kellen worked fast, pulling the fusion core from its housing, rerouting its safety systems, and arming the detonation controls. The power core pulsed with blinding white light, dangerous and unstable. "Once this goes off," Kellen said, "there'll be nothing left within a mile. The creature, the ship, the colony, everything gone." Ria stared at him with fear and sadness. "You're not planning to stay here, right?" He didn't answer, and that told her everything. Someone had to keep the creature inside long enough for the core to explode. Mara's eyes met Kellen's and she shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "We all leave together." But Kellen smiled faintly, his voice calm. "You're the captain, Mara. You're supposed to survive. Me, I just build the machines." He turned and continued working before she could stop him. The ship trembled again. The alien was close. Through the viewports, flashes of blue lightning lit the storm as the creature approached, its glowing veins cutting through the darkness like fire. "Positions!" Mara shouted. The 2 Marines who remained loaded their rifles and aimed toward the main corridor. The first impact hit seconds later, an ear-splitting crash that bent the hull inward. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the lights flickered wildly. The alien tore through the outer shell, its claws slicing metal like paper. It stepped into the ship, towering and radiant with blue light, its energy burning through the air. "Creator," it growled, its voice echoing through every speaker. "You will end here," Kellen shouted from behind the console, "Not today," and fired a plasma cannon straight at the creature. The blast struck its chest, throwing it back, but it quickly recovered, roaring in fury. The battle began, guns blazing, metal shattering, flames bursting from ruptured pipes. The alien moved like lightning, tearing through the corridors as Mara's team fought desperately to push it toward the engine room. Solus was caught first, slammed into a wall before disappearing into the smoke. Rhea screamed, firing round after round, her shots lighting up the chaos. "Keep it coming," Mara yelled, running beside her, her armor scorched and cracked. The creature followed them exactly as planned, chasing them straight into the ship's heart. The room where the overloaded fusion core hummed like a sun. Kellen was already there, standing by the control console with the detonator in his hand. "Get out now," he shouted. Mara froze at the doorway. "You can't do this." But he only smiled sadly. "Someone has to make sure it doesn't escape the blast. Tell Earth." He paused, glancing at the glowing monster stepping into the room. "Tell them we're still the top predators." The creature lunged at him, claws outstretched. Kellen pressed the detonator just as it reached him. The explosion was instant, a white flash brighter than anything they had ever seen. The Artemis 9, the creature, and the Prometheus ship vanished in a wave of fire and light. Ice and rock burst into the sky, and the shockwave rolled across Titan's surface like a storm of suns. From orbit, it looked like a second sunrise over the frozen moon. In the rescue shuttle above, Mara and Rhea watched the bright flare fade into darkness. Neither spoke. Kellen's final words still echoed in Mara's mind, his voice strong even in the end. "We're still the top predators." Humanity had paid a terrible price, but the creature was gone, and its secret buried once more beneath Titan's frozen heart. The mission was over, but the cost of survival would never be forgotten. The silence after the explosion was endless. Titan's storm had quieted, and only the faint hum of static filled the airwaves. The once proud ship, Artemis 9, was gone. Nothing left but a crater of glass and fire spreading across the frozen plains. Hours later, the rescue shuttle from Earth descended through the smoke-filled sky, its bright lights cutting through the darkness. Captain Mara Vance and Rhea sat side by side, wrapped in thermal blankets, their faces pale and eyes hollow. Neither of them spoke. They had watched the light of the explosion fade from orbit, knowing Kellen had stayed behind to end it. He had been the heart of their crew, the quiet one, the fixer, the man who made impossible things work. Now he was gone, and the silence he left behind hurt more than the loss of the ship. The rescue team moved carefully around them, checking their vitals, speaking in hushed tones. To the crew of the rescue ship, this was just another failed mission. To Mara and Rhea, it was the end of something far greater, a fight that had shown them how dangerous and powerful humanity could truly be. As the shuttle lifted from Titan's surface, Mara looked through the viewport at the burning crater below. The blue glow that had once marked the alien creature's presence was gone, replaced by dull ash. The Prometheus ship lay buried under tons of ice, sealed forever. "He did it," Rhea whispered, her voice weak. "He really did it." Mara nodded slowly, though her heart ached. "He saved all of us." There was a long pause before Rhea spoke again. "Do you think there are more of them out there?" Mara didn't answer right away. She thought of the writing on the ship, of the ancient project and the human DNA written into its code. "Maybe," she said finally, "but if there are, they'll think twice before coming for us again." Back on the rescue vessel, a technician recovered what little data the Artemis 9 had managed to transmit before its destruction. Among the corrupted files was a single audio recording, a faint broken transmission that had survived the blast. Mara played it quietly while the others worked around her. The voice that came through the static was unmistakable. It was Kellen. "If it ever wakes again," his voice said, crackling with distortion, "remember, humans made it once. We can kill it again." The message ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence. Mara closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. Even in death, Kellen's courage lived on. He hadn't just destroyed the creature. He had reminded them what it meant to be human. Days later, the shuttle docked with the Earth fleet stationed near Saturn. News of the Titan disaster spread quickly. Official reports labeled it an unknown biological incident, but Mara knew the truth would never be told. Humanity wasn't ready to learn that their ancestors had once created monsters capable of wiping out entire worlds. As the fleet prepared to return home, Mara stood in the observation bay, staring out at the stars. They looked peaceful from this distance, but she knew how easily peace could shatter. The universe was full of mysteries, and not all of them were waiting to be discovered. Some were better left buried. Rhea joined her quietly, still wearing a bandage across her shoulder. "He would have hated all this," she said softly. "The attention, the reports, the questions." Mara smiled faintly. He didn't care about glory. He just wanted to make things right. They stood there for a long moment, watching Titan fade into the distance, its orange glow swallowed by space. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was filled with memory, with the weight of what they had survived. Mara placed a hand on the glass, her reflection staring back at her. "We'll remember him," she said. "We'll remember all of it." As the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, a faint tremor ran through the hull. Somewhere deep within the systems, a flicker of blue light danced across the monitor for just a second before vanishing. No one noticed it, but Mara felt a strange chill. Maybe it was just her mind playing tricks, or maybe not everything had been destroyed in the blast. Either way, she knew one truth that would stay with her forever. Humanity had faced something not human and had survived, not through strength alone, but through courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable will to fight back. No matter what waited out there in the darkness, she knew one thing for certain. Humans would always stand up again, no matter how powerful the enemy, because in the end, that was what made them truly unstoppable.